Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be able to present today's topic from SYNERGY HomeCare, minimizing risk and enhancing independence with home modifications. I think this is such a great topic because so many of the things we're going to talk about today are ones that can be very simply completed and ones that for many are not expensive, but can really make such a difference in the lives of individuals whose life may be impacted by age and or illness and disability. While there won't be much information in this particular topic that is going to be in a medical way or about exercise, there are going to be some things in terms of some financials. So those would be things that it would be important for you to talk with a financial planner, CPA, or elder law attorney in reference to. So Dorothy said it best, there is no place like home. And the reality is that so many of seniors and those who are of all ages living with disabilities want to remain in what they define as their home setting. So today's agenda is going to discuss several things to really help those who want to remain in that home setting. First, we're going to talk about some needs and the physical changes that occur, mostly around aging, but many of these will be resonate with those of any ages dealing with some different disabilities. We're going to talk about home modifications and really focus on different rooms of the house and how the different areas can be impacted. We're going to talk towards the end about proactive planning and really some of the consequences throughout of failure to plan and what some of the barriers to planning for home modifications are. We can't talk about a topic like this without also discussing some of the financial considerations, and then certainly leaving all of you with some resources to be able to research on your own and to be able to go even further with this topic. So while the results of this study is from 2007, the numbers as I moved forward really have not changed drastically. But I thought that this was a really interesting way that this particular study was done, called Aging in Place in America, and was done by Clarity. When asked what they fear most, and this was a group of seniors, the top 4 responses were loss of independence at 26%, moving out of one's home into a nursing home or another setting. That was at 13%, giving up driving at 11%, and loss of family and friends at 11%. And while those numbers as a whole are interesting, the one that is most interesting when you compare those percentages is that only 3% of seniors said that death is what they feared most. So that loss of independence, that need to change settings because of the changes that are occurring, was their greater concern over than death itself. 89% of seniors want to age in place, but 53% are concerned about their ability to do so. And several of the things we're going to talk about today hopefully would bring some peace of mind to both those seniors as well as those who are caring for them and loving them to help them achieve that goal. The reality is home modifications aren't just for the very old or disabled. Every one of us, no matter what our physical or mental condition is, should consider some of the things we're going to be talking about, because they can help ensure that at our weakest moments, whether it is because we have the flu or we are dealing with a temporary situation, can help ensure that we are at our best. Our bodies are constantly changing as we age, and many of these impact even when we are still, quote, young and healthy. Physical changes can often be supported through simple steps which will allow us to live longer, independently, and well. As we move through these slides, think about the things that you can do in your own home or the home of a loved one to help mitigate the risk to you or their safety and independence. As I began to explore ways to best identify how to talk about this topic, because again, there are so many different things that are out there that can aid in managing home changes, I started thinking about it in breaking it down into some of the different senses and some of the different areas that change as we age. And those include hearing, vision, and muscular changes, as well as cognitive and memory changes. So let's talk about vision, because that is one of the larger changes that can happen to many people, certainly at all ages, and does not mean that there are other debilitating physical changes happening. Changes to the eyes take place as a person ages. Many older people, though, have good to adequate vision. However, with aging, peripheral vision is often reduced, even when it is not due to macular degeneration or to that level. Some of the things that happen for all of us as we age is that it takes an older person's eyes more time to acclimate to changes in light. So our eyes take a longer time to adjust from light to dark and dark to light. It's more difficult to focus on things that are near. It requires more troublesome to adjust to glare, and darkness becomes more difficult, which certainly goes to some of the driving issues, which we're not going to talk about today, but clearly is one of the reasons that many seniors kind of self-restrict themselves to driving at night. Clouding of the lenses often occurs, and this is often leading to cataracts. And ability to see colors changes with age as the lens yellows. So red and yellow and orange become easier to see than colors such as blue and green. And all of that is really important to understand, because the more we understand about what is happening and why it's happening, we can then make decisions on what we do with that information and how we adjust things in our lives. So when we think about vision and home modifications, some of the things that we can do for ourselves and for others is to ensure that we light rooms brightly and use more than one non-glare light in a room. Again, light and in a home setting is so key for safety in terms of what we're seeing, how we're navigating through the environment, and any of those are going to minimize the risk for a fall, or even the risk to just kind of bumping into things, which again, as we age, we are more apt to create more damage to our skin and wound issues if we are running into things. One of the suggestions and one of some of the easiest things is to keep a nightlight on in the bedroom, hallway, and bathroom to maintain an equal level of light. And why is that important? Because as I shared, as we age, it becomes more difficult for our eyes to adjust from one light level to another. And so if there's always a kind of a level of light that is there, we have less risk in the middle of the night. And as we age, we also tend to get up more during the night, less risk to kind of run into things, to fall, to try to be finding our way to get to the places we need to, because our eyes haven't adjusted yet. Another thing we can do very simply is to place a strip of glow-in-the-dark tape on a switch plate so you can find it easily in the dark. It is not going to be so bright that it will minimize your opportunity for sleep, but it will be enough so that when you do wake, you are able to easily navigate to that switch plate. Increase lighting on stairwells and steps. And if you really think about it, for so many of our homes, there's really not much light on our steps. And there are some very simple things that can be done to ensure that, again, the handrails are visual, and because our eyes have a more difficult time of finding the difference between a riser and a step, and we then see it almost in terms of no differentiation, to have light on them is going to ensure a little higher level of opportunity to make sure that we're stepping safely. Use contrasting colors in the home, such as colors between the doors and the walls and the dishes and the table coverings, just to ensure, again, a better home environment and one that is more both pleasing to the eye because we're able to see it, but also that we're not kind of running into things that we can't really see the difference in division. Another very simple but very important thing that we can do is to mark the edge of steps with a brightly colored tape. And again, because our eyes see as we age red, yellow, and orange better than blue and green, the tape should be in one of those colors to delineate the steps and risers in the home and minimize risk of falling downstairs. Something else we can do, and something that we sometimes don't even think about when it comes to vision, is that we could have a caregiver or family member mark in large print use by dates on food items in the fridge and in the cupboards. If we can't see when those dates are past due, we may be taking food stuff that could make us sick. And so having larger print on those type of things is really key. That would be the same on bottles of medication. Oftentimes they're very small print, and you can ask your pharmacist as well if they can print them out in larger print formats so that you're more able to ensure that you're getting to the right medication with the right dosage. With a brightly colored pen or marker, you want to think about marking on and off positions on appliances, gas lines, etc., to ensure that it's visually apparent to the person. Again, we don't realize there's not a lot of space on a knob for a stove or an oven to be able to know when it's off. So ensure that there is some other indicator if we have low vision. We want to arrange furniture in a way that allows for easy visual sightlines. And large button phones with pictures for pre-dial numbers, particularly for a family member, for an emergency contact, or for the police, is really key. It may be more difficult for us to see the number is 911, but if we pre-dial that in with an ambulance picture, very easy for people to get to. Hearing. About 30% of people over the age of 60 have a hearing impairment, but about 33% of those 75 to 84 and about 50% of those over the age of 85 have a more serious hearing loss. Older people have trouble hearing higher pitched tones, and hearing loss in older people is oftentimes progressive and can not only impair communication, but actually increase social isolation. So what are some of the things we can do in our home settings to really help with this? One is to install closed captioning on televisions. And when we think about televisions and safety, we have to think about that many people are getting their news from the TV, certainly then versus the radio, which is often more difficult to hear as well. And if we can't really understand the message, we could risk not knowing that there's an emergency situation in our community and town. Improve room acoustics so that sound that is traveling throughout that area has better acoustics. And that can be done through rugs, wall hangings, and acoustic tiles. Now, I've marked some of the items throughout this discussion with little dollar signs because those are going to be some of the items that are going to have a little higher value in terms of cost associated with them. But this is really key. Think about installing security and fire systems with visual alerts and sensors so that when the fire alarm goes off, if someone's hearing is impaired and they won't hear that, they could have it connected to a vibrating sensor as well as a light that will be going off, kind of like a red spinning light, which people are going to then be able to react to. Utilize watches and timers with vibration. Again, if someone needs some guidance and assistance with taking medications on time, this is one way to ensure that they're going to be able to hear that alarm or beep as well as just seeing it. Use weather warning systems also that have visual sensors and vibrations, particularly if you're in an environment where weather can change very quickly and can have very difficult disabling effects. And think about having modified telephone systems with visual readouts. There are many community-based programs that will assist with some of those TTY type telephone systems, and many vision and hearing loss centers in each city and state that may be able to assist with those kind of programs. So now let's talk about bones, muscles, joints, and mobility, which is again another large aspect of what's happening as we age and some of the things that then create some of the most difficulties within our home settings. So most adults lose about a half pound of muscle per year after the age of 20. Now that can be reversed with strength training and using weights, etc. And there's a lot of research in showing how this can be mitigated with those type of exercises, and also a lot of benefits to things like Tai Chi and yoga for flexibility, for balance, for core strength. So this information is not just saying, okay, you're aging, this is it, there's nothing that can be done, but it is important to understand that these things are putting us at a higher risk. People lose bone mass or density as they age. The trunk of the body becomes shorter as the discs in the spine actually lose fluid and become thinner. Bones of the arms and legs are more brittle due to mineral loss, and this often is impounded and impacted by some of the medications that people are taking as well, use of steroids, etc. Joints become stiffer and less flexible, and that also then is even worse if you also have complicating factors such as arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, etc. Movement slows and can become more limited. The gait becomes slower and shorter, and one can become more unsteady. And of course, this is just with aging, but if we add another debilitating or progressive or chronic illness such as Parkinson's, which often has shuffling of the feet, or other such diseases, that can be even more so. And strength and endurance can change. So based on all of that, we definitely have things that we can do within the home to make it a safer environment. So some of the things that can happen is consider putting in different height countertops at varied levels so the individual can work sitting or standing. So again, that they're still able to participate and that the home environment is not minimizing their ability to participate in day-to-day activities, but it's a way to ensure that they can do so safely and comfortably. Depending on the situation and the type of other devices that may be needed to be used in durable medical equipment, you may need to be widening doors to accommodate wheelchairs and walkers to make it easier to move throughout the home. Again, as we get into newer construction, many times those are already taken into consideration, and many of those changes have already been done, versus if someone is still living in the family home from the 50s, or 60s, where the space is going to be very different and more compartmentalized. Consider having a bedroom in the downstairs to minimize the risk of falls on stairs, whether that is due to bone, muscle, joint changes or vision changes. This may require changes in the bathroom design or adjusting so that there's a bathing and shower option. Consider replacing cabinet handles and door handles that make them easier to open. Think about lever handles that just get pushed down versus round doorknobs that have to be turned. And again, arthritis and other kind of flexible joint concerns can make that very difficult. So people then have a much more difficult time getting in and out of the doors. Place a seat or bench in the shower and add a handheld shower sprayer to help with, again, showering, hygiene, etc. Showers are easier to be getting in and out of, certainly, than bathtubs. And there are, though, some seats and benches that go over bathtubs, not the newer designs that tend to be very high profile, but a typical bathtub from a 80s or lower home that can help someone slide right in. So they're not having to lift their leg up and over the edge of the bathtub. Grab bars in the bathroom. Now, many people say, well, I have something that helps. And when you ask those additional questions, it could be a towel rack, a toilet paper dispenser, or pedestal sink that they're using for leverage. But these are not replacements and actually can become a danger because you are risking them coming off of the wall and you then falling. Grab bars are very inexpensive, can be put in with very minimal level of complexity. But it is important to ensure that you're reading the directions and doing it in the proper way with all of the safety devices incorporated into that. Consider replacing the toilet with a high-rise version or add an over-the-toilet commode. Having a newer version of the toilet replaced, which also is probably going to save money on water because they're going to be much more efficient. But many people would prefer that option versus having to add an over-the-toilet commode and another kind of plastic device. So really think about that. And toilets nowadays are made in different height levels. One of the easiest things we can do in the home is to pick up scatter rugs or by minimally securing them with two-side tape or carpet backing. The best way one of the ways to determine if a scatter rug is safe and is going to move is just place your foot on it, twist your foot, and if the rug is twisting with you, clearly this is not a safe rug. And again, it's also if you're shuffling or if you have someone in your home who has difficulty picking up their feet, whether it's due to Parkinson's or just difficulty with flexibility, there's a lot of opportunity for someone to get their feet caught under any one of those sides and then have a fall. Think about adjusting the location of heavier items and really many items on shelves in all rooms to minimize risk. Particularly as we age and particularly for women, our upper arm strength reduces if we're not doing any type of training and strength training. And so getting your arms over your head and lifting anything from a shelf is going to put you at risk, particularly if you're doing that at the same time that you're standing on any type of stepladder. Consider replacing flooring with either wood, vinyl, or tiled unpolished flooring, which is easier on the feet and can help reduce falls. If carpet is something that you're wanting, consider using a commercial grade, no padding, and low pile carpet. There are some products on the market from companies that will actually do a coating over flooring of all types, except for carpet, of course, that make it, doesn't change the look, but it actually puts a no-slip kind of texture on it, almost like a sandy texture. Again, you can't see it, but you can feel it and helps reduce the risk of falls. Very similar to the kind of plastic nubby socks that you get when you're in the hospital when you're walking around in those to help reduce falls. Consider making sure that you have stepless entries between rooms. And if you do have multiple level rooms where there's like a sunken living room, make sure that, again, on the areas that you're going to be typically stepping down from, that you put that colored piece of tape to delineate between the step and the riser. Front-loading appliances, including front knob stoves. This way people aren't reaching over the appliance or over a hot stove to adjust. Again, as our bodies shrink a little bit in size, we have a more difficult time kind of reaching flexibility. So think about those type of things. And then, of course, there are elevators that can be put into a home, stair gliders, that can go up on stairs if there's not another option for your home environment and the upstairs is important for you to access. There's also some pictures here on the slides of a lift chair to help people get up and out of a chair. So changing in furniture is another way to just modify the home environment, as well as putting in a step-in tub in replacing your regular bathtub or your shower. And this is particularly if there is some physical benefit of having a bath, but difficult to get in and out of a bathtub safely. We could spend an entire session, probably more than an hour, on the different assistive technologies that there are. And we see many of these technological advances, not just for those who are aging, but particularly for those who are seniors. One of the things that I also wanted to touch on is those changes that happen for cognitive declines. And so many of the adjustments that we've talked about would be appropriate, but there's some others as well. And those would include making sure that there are shutoff valves for the stove, for gas lines, for anything that could be adjusted to a place that it is unsafe. Turning down the water heater so that water can only get up to a certain level, so that if someone goes and tries to have a shower or bath and they don't have a caregiver with them at that moment, that they can't simply just turn on all of the hot water and then be scalded, because the water is only going to get to a certain level no matter how high they put on just one of the faucets. Changing doors so that for most of us and for most home design, bathrooms are designed so that when you open the door, you don't see the toilet because it's just more visually pleasing not to. But for someone with memory loss, the best way to ensure that they can stay in their home longer, that they have reduced risk of incontinence, is to give reminders. And one of those ways is that for when the bathroom door opens, that it shows the toilet there, so that as people are walking by, that toilet for much of the stages until later stages is still going to be a trigger and a reminder for someone that the toilet reminds them about needing to use the bathroom. So little things that can be done. This whole kind of discussion really focuses on the more we understand about the changes that are taking place, whether it's with one of the senses, whether it's with cognitive change, or whether it's with a specific disease and how that disease progresses, the better we can think about if X happens because of age or illness, what does it mean in terms of my capabilities or reduction in those? And then what can I do to enhance that for as long a period of time as possible? And that's really what home modification is all about, is really thinking about what are you losing, what do you need to maintain for your safety and for your independence to the highest level, and what can you do to simply replace it or enhance it in a way that's going to help. And one of those things is also about assistive technology. So there's a lot of different companies, and the companies that I list here are not because we are making a recommendation for those, but these are several of the ones that are able to be reviewed and seen as possibilities. So wireless sensors can be placed in the home to monitor seniors' daily routine, and these can be monitored from a distance. Some of the ways that these can help is that, again, as we age, if we're living in our own homes and we don't have 24-hour supervision through a caregiver or through a family or friend who's there during that whole time, we often are concerned that the way that people are using the environment is not putting them in the best place. And so having sensors on things allows us to understand how somebody's using different aspects of that home, whether it's a sensor that's placed and you know when a stove is turned on and when it's turned off. And if it's not turned off, sometimes it can be turned off through that wireless app. It will allow to show how frequently someone is flushing a toilet. Now, why is that important? Because if you know that mom or dad typically go to the restroom 3 to 5 times a day, and on this day they have not gone once and the toilet has not flushed once, there could be a concern. Either they have some type of urinary infection that is, or some kind of kidney issue, causing a change in their urinary routine, or maybe they've had a fall or another medical incident that they are no longer able to be getting up and going to the restroom, and it may now be a medical emergency. So it's amazing how just little things that we do day to day as part of our routine can really help identify what else is happening in our environment. One of the biggest concerns for people, and one of the reasons that people do need the support of somebody else, is for their medication management. Now, certainly caregivers such as services through SYNERGY HomeCare can help with that and provide reminders. But if there's not a caregiver there at a certain time, then medication management systems can be utilized so that medications are loaded in, preloaded, and then an alarm can go off, both a visual or a sensor alarm, and then families can find out through computer apps whether medication have been taken. And if it's not been taken, then to figure out why. There's some of these that we can use every day, no matter what our age. And we now have ways to lock doors, provide temperature control, unlock a door so that if we're concerned about something going on in our home and we can send a neighbor in or emergency responders and they don't have to break down the door. So lots of different ways. A great thing for seniors to make their home safer is that you can see actually who's coming to their door and what's happening. Is the door being opened for somebody that you are able to see on your phone that's not somebody you know? And then you're able to respond to them if you're concerned that mom or dad may not be able to respond either safely or with the best decision in terms of who they're letting into their home. And then telehealth has a variety of different programs that can allow for kind of medical supervision in areas, whether it's about weight management, heart rates, blood pressure, and even through a company called Respond Well, that's really beginning to look at how people are moving throughout their home, particularly for those who may have had a recent knee or hip replacement, and it can really be measuring those type of things and how movement is happening, and then being able to incorporate physical or occupational therapy programs if needed. I think one of the most important aspects of talking about home modifications is talking about it before the need arises. So it's so key that we begin to plan ahead. Many of us understand, particularly if there is a diagnosis and maybe one that's chronic or progressive, that as we think about the next steps in our life, and maybe that is not going to happen for several years until symptoms arise. But if we start to think about, that maybe we want to move homes and we're changing location, that instead of buying a 2-story home, we're going to instead buy a single-level home because we recognize that in a short period of time, or perhaps before the home is sold, and we move to a different location, that something could change and we don't want to have to remodify or make a move quickly. So really thinking ahead, this is timely because my own mother, who's 81, and please know she knows that I use her often as a kind of a example in seminars and webinars that I do. So I'm not crossing boundaries, but she's actually looking at making a move from her 2-story large home that she retired to her next home. And we've spent a lot of time really talking about what does she want today in that house, but what does she want down the line so that she doesn't have to make a lot more moves. And while this is probably not going to be her last move, because there's a potential as she gets older that she may need to move into more of a senior setting. She's not at that place just because of who she is and her health and her lifestyle. But she's certainly looking at it in places In fact, the place she's looking at has both 1-level and 2-level homes. And when I asked her about that, she's like, well, of course I'm going to look at only the 1-level home because I'll rarely use the upstairs, and if I become more, difficult to get around, it would be a waste of space. So she's kind of already thinking about the layout of the home and what she needs for today, but also as she moves down the aging path. Planning in a crisis is not best practice. And so while we often don't want to plan for what could be, we have to be realistic in what there's a good potential to be. So again, as we're aging, the likelihood that the changes that I discussed at the beginning in terms of some vision changes and hearing changes and certainly joint and muscle and bone changes, well, they may not be completely disabling. They probably will make some adjustments or need to make some adjustments in one's life to accommodate them. So really not planning in a crisis and planning ahead. The other thing is that we need to ask questions of those we are providing care for. Often individuals will say that, and I know this as a social worker when I worked with clients, is I would ask them if they had certain equipment in their home, whether it was a commode or a walker, etc. And they very often would say, yes, I have that, which would make everybody feel pretty good about the next step and the plan for returning home until you ask the next question, which is, are they set up? Where are they? Or you actually visit the home to find that the commode that they have over the toilet commode is still in the box that it was delivered by the durable medical equipment company, that the walker they have, but it's put in the garage and they don't use it, or it's not set up properly. So making sure that we ask additional questions, that it's being set up and it's being used appropriately. One of the other things, and often one of the barriers to managing one's home, is that people don't want to have to make changes, because by making changes, they are having to admit to themselves that they themselves have changed or their loved one has changed. And so one of the ways to work with, whether it's a family member or a client, is to have them really focus on what their goal is. If their goal is to remain in their home, and we keep talking about that as their goal that they've identified, then it makes it easier for them to live with some of the things they may have to kind of mitigate to get to that goal. So it's really about bartering with oneself. Is it worth having a few extra adjustments in my home to having some pieces of equipment that to me remind me a little bit more of a medical center than having to actually move to a medical center? And I think oftentimes it's talking about how we discuss that. And again, the more we can relate it back to what their goal is, and if again their goal is remaining in their home as independent as possible, and these are one piece of the puzzle to be able to get to that, people are going to be more apt to go along with that plan, particularly if they get to be part of that plan. Financing home modifications. Many of the changes that we've discussed today have fairly minimal costs associated with them. However, larger projects or equipment may be more costly. Medicare and insurance typically does not cover home modifications, although they may cover some durable medical equipment with a doctor's order, and depending on a program that you're involved in, whether it's home care or hospice particularly, there may be some equipment that will be covered, but the actual home modifications themselves rarely are. Now, some long-term care insurance policies that are paid for privately may have coverage for the installation of ramps or grab bars, or the use of a telephonic medical alert system to make the house safer and more accessible. And that's something to check with your provider on. And it's certainly something to consider if you're looking at a long-term care policy to see what can be incorporated into that plan. area agency on aging that is available in all states, and local and state grant programs often are available to assist both with low-income individuals, but often with individuals from different with different diseases and different needs to be able to make adjustments in one's home. And also check that if you are needing to make adjustments due to cancer, ALS, muscular dystrophy, a variety of the different diseases, their associations will also have some resources and guidance on getting some programs available for home modification. Thinking about how you can use the equity that you have in your home, especially if you're going to be in your home for a longer period of time. People may want to think about reverse mortgages, home equity lines of credit, loans, etc., and to talk with your CPA and attorney. I do see that there are several questions that are up there, and I will get to those. And certainly if anybody has some questions that they would like me to address at the end, please begin to type those in as well. So I put a variety of resources. Now, these are a very small amount, and actually within many of these websites you will have much larger lists of other websites and other resources to go to. So this is just a very small list. But there is one resource that I really like. Is called the ALZ store, ALZ, and that's an Alzheimer's based store. So this is lots of products that really help make both around safety, home management, and also socialization for those with all different levels of Alzheimer's and dementia. And they actually are categorized by the different stages. So that's a great location. There's a website called homemods.org, and that has a very comprehensive list of products and resources on home modification programs, resources, financial aid, assistance, etc. There's an organization called Rebuilding Together, and that organization helps for low-income seniors and disabled to help redesign and do some home modifications in their own homes. payingforseniorcare.com/home modifications has resources to help seniors pay for home modifications. So another great resource to go to see which ones may benefit you and available in your location. PrincetonSenior.org/adaptive technology for seniors has lots of resources to explore adaptive technology and home modifications. AARP.org/livable communities has a lot of different programs, articles, and resources available. They have what is referred to as home fit guides and worksheets. So some great checklists that you can use on your own. You can help a family member or a client use for each room of the house to help kind of, one, identify some risk areas, to begin to develop a list of things that you can adjust and change yourself, and those that may need some outside assistance and somebody who is more well-versed in those. But Home Fit program, there's lots of different downloadable resources. It also has a list of certified aging in place specialists, and these individuals, some of which get this categorization because they are occupational therapists or physical therapists, but also several of those in the construction field have this, and it really just is giving them an extra expertise on home modifications and managing their living environments for clients. And particularly if you're looking at something that is going to change the structure of your home, maybe you're building a kind of what we call mother-in-law suite for somebody who's going to be coming in and living with you, definitely look for those in that area of construction that do have this certified aging in place, because they may have some ideas for best practice in how that home should be designed, versus working with someone who simply is looking at it from a construction standpoint, but really doesn't understand it from a disability or senior changes standpoint. SYNERGY HomeCare also, as we do complimentary assessments in individuals' homes, as part of that, will do a home safety evaluation to really help identify throughout different rooms of the home some areas to make some adjustments to, both small and those that may be larger adjustments, and then looking for resources with you to assist. Before I get to questions, if you did enjoy today's webinar, feel free to like the SYNERGY HomeCare Facebook page, and that will keep you current on all the upcoming webinars and articles about caregiving and seniors. And you can join our newsletter, which also will keep you up to date on all of our upcoming webinars that we do each month as well. And there is no cost to join that. The next webinar that we're going to be doing is in July, and that is going to be understanding the stages of Alzheimer's and the impact on caregiving. So we're really going to look and explore the different areas of Alzheimer's, the stages, and how at different stages along the journey of this disease, for both clients and family members, what are the things that can be done? What are the resources that are most appropriate at different stages? We're also excited that we have now set our August through January webinar features, and I will just mention a couple. In August, we're going to be discussing grief and loss, a caregiver's perspective, really understanding grief from all different perspectives, and not just grief and loss that occurs at death, but grief and loss from other cumulative losses. And in September, another topic that is very near to me is art, music, and movement, and how to use all of these to enhance one's day-to-day life. And again, this does not mean that you have to be a great artist, a great musician, or a ballerina to be able to enjoy this and to be able to bring these features to the life of a client or family member, but just small ways to incorporate art, music, and movement. We'll be talking about many of the other topics, and again, we're excited that we have our fall and winter lineup set. So I'm going to get to some of the questions. Someone asked if seniors over the age of 85 actually respond to the different types of technology or respect the different types of technology. You know, I think part of it is how we approach it and what we discuss with it. I'm a big believer that the more we talk about individuals' goals, the more that people are able to express what it is that they're wanting and why, and that we respect that, but are honest about what we're able to do and the reasons why we're making the suggestions we are. I think that the dialogue can continue. I think that if we listen to what someone is telling us and we use that back to them as to why we are suggesting what we are, I think we have a greater opportunity to ensure that we can get the agreement for the types of services, the type of resources that we are trying to put in place. I think technology can be a little disconcerting for seniors if they are not familiar with it, although many are much more familiar than we give them credit for. And the numbers are certainly increasing. And I think it's, again, what are we explaining to them? What do they have to do with it? Do they really have to interact, or is it done for them? And what's the outcome for it? And then I would always ask, what is your concern? What's your biggest fear about doing this? What do you think can be gained by having this? So I think it really just goes down to the communication. So in terms of these, all of these slides will be available, or the PowerPoint is available on YouTube, and will be available and up within 24 hours. And if you would like to receive your certificate of attendance, then please contact me at carlasutter@synergyhomecare.com, and that's how you would receive that. Thank you. Someone enjoyed the information. I'm going to give another minute to see if anybody else has any questions about this. If you do have additional questions, please go on to synergyhomecare.com, and you can actually put in your zip code or city, and it will come up with one of our offices, and feel free to reach out to them. Let them know that you listened to the webinar today and you had some additional questions, and they will be glad to answer those for you. So I'm just going to give another second if anybody has a question. Also, if there's something that you wanted to ask and do it offline, please don't hesitate to email me as well. And if I can't provide you the information, I will connect you to the resource that can. So I really appreciate everybody's, oh, hold on. That's great. So we have one of the participants is a social worker working in a senior building and really focused on making sure that the building is designed and the individual apartments are done in a way that people can age in place and be there for life as their life needs adjust and change. And I think we're seeing that so much more, both in how we're looking at construction in general in our homes, but certainly how senior apartments and complexes are designed and built to really accommodate changes. And there's so much great construction and technology that can be put in place right away. So again, thank you so much. I hope to see all of you on our next July webinar, and to join our newsletter. Again, thank you, and thank you from Synergy Home Care. Bye-bye.